the director of didactics.
I actually was a school bus driver. I actually graduated on a Friday. My first day of work was on a Saturday at my clinical site that I went to. Yes.
So now everybody's gonna wanna know tips and tricks. How do we do that?
Well, we trained them. They know how to do everything at our site. So if you don't understand one class, you're gonna start struggling throughout. Take it as a year-long interview, more and more pay. This is a scary modality. There has been injuries, there's been deaths.
They're not scans, they're patients.
In 1977, Dr. Raymond Damadian used a crude apparatus to scan a live human being for the very first time. With that MRI came the need for trained personnel. Yet how does one get magnetic resonance imaging training?
Bob, you are the poster child for what every MRI student wants to do, I'm sure. And that is you were a student.
Mm-hmm.
You got a job at your clinical site
Yes.
just before you graduated. Then you go on and you work some, but you go to school and you get the bachelor's in MRI. And then you began up the ladder at Gurnick to the point of being a director now.
Yes.
So now everybody's going to want to know tips and tricks. How do we do that?
Yeah. So, like you said, I graduated. I went to Gurnick in Modesto for my MRI, and I graduated in 2017.
With the AS.
My AS and
Okay.
MRI, yes. And I actually graduated on a Friday. First day of work was a Saturday at the clinical site that I was at. And that happens a lot for students is, these clinical sites work with you, train you up, and they're like, of course, we want to hire you.
That's pretty good for the resume though, right?
Yeah.
You graduate one day,
Graduate and work the next.
hired the next. Okay.
So I
Retired the third.
I wish. So I started working. I was only part-time there. So I was picking up odd jobs for MRIs at different facilities, weekend here, weekend there, until
Kind
a
of per
full-time,
diem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Until a full-time position came up.
Wait, is that fun, by the way? Everybody talks about the travel healthcare professional.
It just depends. It depends
Okay.
on, your situation. If you're single by yourself, you have no real
Love being
responsibility.
Airbnbs.
Yeah, just go wherever you want.
Okay.
For me, I had a child and a family, so it was a little hard, but I knew I had to do what I had to do. And then a full-time position came up at the job I was working at, so I took it, and I worked there for about 3 years and got my bachelor's. I actually went back to Gurnick on their online bachelor's DMI program. Got my bachelor's through Gurnick. And
What year was that?
I was finishing in 2020.
Okay.
Actually got called by the MRI program.
The very next day?
No. Actually, it was probably a month before I graduated. I got called by the MRI program because I knew some people. I actually went to school with the director at the time.
Okay.
And so he knew I was finishing my bachelor's and they had a position. And so I actually got hired for the clinical coordinator position.
So you were clinical coordinator at your alma mater.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was now working for Gurnick full-time as their clinical coordinator for the Modesto, Sacramento area.
Okay.
And after about a year of doing that, I got promoted to the program coordinator.
So you just keep getting promoted.
So, you put the time in, you work hard, it works.
Okay.
So
I got that book too.
Yeah. So I worked in, and I'm now the program coordinator at the time. Did that for another year and a half. And then, some things changed in the program leadership. And now I am the Didactic Program Director.
So here you are from 2017 to 2024,
Yeah.
and this huge trajectory. So every student out there is going to be saying, how do we do what Bob did?
Well, it's hard work, a lot of hard work. But let me tell you, time flies by really quick. When I first joined the MRI program, I was thinking, man, 18 months. Okay. I gotta work on the side and do this whole program.
Because you were working and going to school.
I had to, I had the responsibilities. I had to, not everyone does, but if you do, it can be done. It is very difficult, especially when you're going to clinicals and trying to learn your didactics, but it can be done. So I finished the program and got hired at my clinical site, part-time.
Which is what everyone says, right? You have a really good chance of
you
being
do. You have a
hired at your
great
clinical
chance.
site. And compliance is going to take that part out of the video, but you really do have a good chance.
Yeah, you got to remember the clinical sites, yes, they're training you, but they're also training you the way that site works, their protocols, their procedures and everything.
And they're looking to see, do we want to hire him? Mm-hmm. It's a courtship, right?
Because it's a year long, like most students are at their clinical site for a year at the same clinical site. So these clinical sites, they end up, being like, well, we trained them. They know how to do everything at our site. To work alone at that point. And so they're like, let's hire this person because, they don't have to then hire somebody else and then take time to train them.
Onboard them and everything.
When they've already trained a student, now they can just bring them on.
Plus they've watched you in this sort of year-long interview.
And that's exactly what we tell our students is that when you're at clinicals, take it as a year-long interview because that's what it is. Yes, you're learning important information. You're doing these things, but the clinical site is also looking at you as this is a year-long interview, and really take that to heart because there's been students that you've even gotten job offers 3 months already into their clinicals, and boom, already got a job offer. So it just shows that you're at clinicals for a year. So put the time in. It's going to be very difficult. You're going to be very tired as a student because you got clinicals. You could be driving to clinicals pretty far. I was driving from Modesto at one point to Santa Clara for clinicals 3 days a week. So I understand when students are like, oh, I have to drive 40 minutes. I'm like, okay, that's not too bad. So it just all depends. But yeah, you put the time in, it will pay out. And that's what I really love about this program is that you're going to clinicals while you're still learning material. And so we do this whole learn and apply method. It's very common in the healthcare. That's how doctors, nurses, and pretty much everything in healthcare is done. And so students are going to be learning concepts and they're able to go to clinicals the next day and see that concept in work. And start to understand what they're doing a little bit more on the machines instead of just clicking buttons.
So it's reinforcing that learning continually as they go.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very good. So yeah, I mean, this is something that all students can do.
Give me the tips and tricks on how they can do this. Some short ideas. And things they shouldn't do.
Okay. Tips and tricks for students that actually join our program. And the biggest thing I like to tell them is during the didactic portions, don't just skim through the material. The way our program is built is one class is built upon the other.
Okay, so it's comprehensive.
Yeah. So if
laying a foundation.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't understand one class to the full knowledge that you should, you're going to start struggling throughout. But the thing about our program is our instructors are trained to know when a student is struggling, and they will reach out to them and set up some tutorings. We want all of our students to understand the material because it's just going to make it that much easier for them throughout the program. And the biggest thing is students you can graduate our program, but if you can't pass the national boards after you graduate, the program was really worth nothing. So we know that as instructors and as our program, and we want our students to pass.
So be tutored. Mm-hmm. Full disclosure, were you ever tutored? Did you
Oh
have-
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. I definitely was. There was some physics that it was just a little difficult for me at the time. And I do remember this one portion when I was sitting in class and the teacher was explaining something. And I just remember it was like a light bulb.
Clicked.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, the last 3 months.
Did you
all
stand up
make
in your
sense.
seat and-
I was like, oh my gosh, I understand now. And I
slow motion, the music
Yeah.
comes on.
It was good because at that point I was starting to like really stress out. Like, I'm not really understanding too much, and I'm staying after class with the teacher and trying to understand. But I just remember that one day he explained something in class and it just clicked for me.
So they like, that was the foundation that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When you go through a program like this, even when you graduate and pass your boards, you don't know everything. And this is a field that we are in that constantly evolving. The technology in it's constantly evolving. So you have to stay up to date on the new technology that's coming out. AI is a big boom right now, and so we have even AI coming into the medical field, into imaging.
Explain that just a minute. We're still on tips, but explain what you mean by the AI coming in. Like how is that tangibly seen in MRI?
So there's new technology for AI that is starting to implement its way into MRI. Now, it's not fully ever going to take over MRI. I know some people have asked that before, like, is AI going to just take over and there's no need for techs? No, there's always going to be a need for tech. A lot of the AI that we know is more machine learning than actual intelligence. So the AI that is being used in MRI and being implemented into MRI is more of, okay, we know for this next scan, usually set the slices up like this around, these body parts. So it'll like kind of place it for you, but then the tech has to make sure it's in the right area, covering the right amount and everything.
So it senses kind of where the positioning of the patient needs to be.
Yeah,
like
I basically say that the AI coming into MRI is more of a MRI assistant than the MRI technologist.
But the machine knows what you're going to be scanning.
Yeah, because even now, even most machines that don't have AI, you have to click on a certain protocol. So if a patient is coming in for a lower back lumbar, you're clicking on lumbar protocol, so you have your scan. So those new learning, machine learning's coming in. When you click on something like that, it's going to be like, okay, I know we're doing a lumbar. And so it's going to like, okay, here's some vertebrae that I think they are, and they'll kind of place some slices there for you. But it's never going to be perfect. And the technologist has to just make sure everything is perfect and exactly where it needs to be. And another thing is, there could be multiple doctors at a facility. Mm-hmm. You could be working with a neuro doctor, MSK doctor and everything. And depending on the type of scan, you might have to set it up a little bit different for that doctor. So there's going to be things that the technologist always has to do that machine learning just can't do.
Can you go back there? What did you mean by setting it up differently for that doctor? So doctors have just preferences on how they want to read those scans, and so positioning is changing? Or? Depending
on what the referring order is asking. You could be doing a lumbar scan, let's just stay with that example, for multiple different reasons. Instead of just lower back pain, you could be doing a scan for lower extremity pain or something. It just depending on what you're scanning on that body part. So it just, you could be sending it to different doctors, just depending on the facility. Some facilities only have 2 doctors that just read everything. Some facilities have multiple doctors. And if you're at a major hospital, you're going to have multiple doctors that are there. And they have multiple doctors that could be not on site, but are reading from online. So it just all depends
on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had said, don't be afraid to get tutored.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of AI.
Yeah.
Maybe check AI, but don't be afraid of it. What would be a third tip?
For students, it is just really focus on the program. I always tell my students when they get into the program, the next 18 months, tell your personal life, I'm on hold.
So focus
just
on
focus
school.
on
Okay.
the program.
Yeah.
You're not going to be going on vacations or anything in these 18 months or anything. You need to really focus. This is a 2-year program condensed down into 18 months. It's an accelerated program. We need the students to focus. And the good thing is our instructors are trained to know when a student is struggling, and they'll reach out to the student. And if a student struggles enough to where they fall below a certain percentage, we set up mandatory tutoring.
Don't be afraid to be tutored.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid of AI, but check it. And then
Technology, yeah.
and then focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would be a fourth tip?
Time management is very important also.
So that would be another tip.
Yeah.
Would be the time management.
Yeah.
Know what to prioritize, what
Mhm.
not to.
Yeah.
So we've given tips for students. You've given some good ones. What would you tell students not to do?
Well, as a student, what not
Speaking
to
from
do.
experience.
Yeah. As a student, this is not like high school or something where you can kind of just go to class, skim the information right before a test and take the test and pass. We really want you to learn the information, not remember the information. And so a lot throughout the whole 18 months, you're going to be hearing information over and over and getting more and more into that information as we go through to help the students learn it, not remember it. Because you need to learn all of this for your boards, and not just to pass a test for that week and move on. And so that's one huge thing that I tell the students is make sure you're understanding and learning the information. Don't just quickly review something and then take your test. It's going to help you right then and there, but it's not going to help you in the long run.
So no regurgitation of facts. Completely
Yeah.
understand, inculcate what you're trying to learn and know it through and through.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
other thing would you tell students not to do?
Get rid of social media because that's a very big distraction for students. And so, if you just put it on pause for 18 months, it's going to fly by. But yeah, anything that's going to distract you as a student, try to put that on pause. But it just all depends on the student themselves. You got to really push yourself. And if you don't, you'll have meetings with me and my team and everything, where we're like, hey, we're seeing you're starting to slip on some of this. We need to get this up, and we'll put a plan together for the student and make sure they can get it.
So be honest. Is it a strenuous program?
I went through this program, and I will say for me, it was.
Okay.
It was. I didn't have the biggest background in healthcare or anything. I actually was a school bus driver.
Okay.
When I first
Bob
came
on the
into
bus.
this. Yeah. And so I actually went into this program, and it was a little difficult.
Okay.
But you just put the time in. You just put the time in. You're gonna get through it. And also do study groups. I did study groups. If you're going to do study groups, no more than 3 people in a group, because when it's 4, it becomes just a chat.
It's a party.
Yeah.
It's a party at 4.
Yeah. So I always tell students, do study groups. I used to do study groups through Skype when I was in school. Now I'm sure they're using Google Meet or Zoom. But yeah, study groups is really big because if you and a student are trying to learn a concept and you're talking about it back and forth, they might understand a point that you didn't, and vice versa. Now you are both putting the information together, and it's going to help you both learn it. But yeah, the tutoring with the teachers is always provided, and that's a very big part for our students.
What finally, and then we'll wrap up. What is the number one solid coursework you need for this profession? What would you say? Is it the physics? Is it the anatomy and physiology?
So,
is it the, what is it?
So if we're talking about passing the boards, of course the physics is going to be a huge part of the boards, but everything is going to be part of the boards. Patient care, anatomy, everything along those lines are going to be part of it. Now for me in MRI itself, I always say patient care is the most important part of MRI. You need to make sure everything is safe, because this is a scary modality. There has been injuries, there's been deaths because steps weren't taken. So you need to make sure that you're doing the proper steps in patient care to make sure everything is safe for you and the patient. And if even for scans, if you get the patient as comfortable and you do the best patient care, I guarantee that scan's going to go a lot better than if you're just trying to throw a patient in there and scan it really fast. And so patient care, I think, is the biggest portion in any healthcare field.
So at the bottom of the day, then what we've discussed, the tips, we've discussed all of the different pieces of what goes into being a student and completing the program, the do's, the don'ts. At the end of the day, really, the bottom line is patient care.
I think that's a huge part of being an MRI technologist is your patient care. You need to show empathy. Don't ever lose that. You got to remember, these are not just scans. These are actually people's lives. And a lot of your patients are going to come in scared. And they can come in scared, and the way they show that is by being rude. And so they're going to be rude to you. And you have to just do your best to be professional, help them get through the scan. And I guarantee 9 out of 10 times those rude patients are going to come out of that scan and apologize to you and thank you. It's just a huge part of our job. And if you lose that empathy for your patients, you're going to lose being a good tech.
So patient care with empathy being the piece that is emphasized, because I just loved what you just said. They're not scans, they're patients.
Exactly. Yeah.
In fact, I think that would be a nice even title for the segment. They're not scans, they're patients, they're lives. Worst case scenario, are MRIs dangerous? Tell me the truth, Bob.
It all depends. MRIs have definitely gotten safer throughout the years. MRI is still a new modality.
Gotten safer as to what?
But yes, they have gotten safer. More precautions have gone in. Magnetic wands in front of the door, even a metal detector around the door.
Because there's helium in there.
There's helium, but it's also a very, very strong magnet. So any ferromagnetic material you take in there can turn into a very deadly situation. There's been incidents where a tech has taken in the wrong type of oxygen tank, not the MRI safe oxygen tank, but a regular steel oxygen tank. And it has resulted in, patients losing their lives or.
What does it do? What do you mean losing their lives?
So
tell me, what do you mean losing their lives?
You take a cylinder into an MRI room. It's gonna get grabbed by the magnetic force.
Meaning what?
It's gonna pull it right out of your hands and turn it into a projectile.
Like a bullet.
Exactly.
So you get hit with a bullet in an MRI machine.
It can happen.
I don't know if I want one now.
I will say these stories are very, very, very few. And they're, I haven't heard of a news story like that in a very long time.
Like how long?
I would say 10 years at least.
Okay.
I'm not constantly looking on the internet for these stories, but it has happened.
We're in a new generation of
there's-
MRI machines now.
Yeah, like I said before, now there's metal detectors around the door. There's testing units before you take anything into the room. Even wheelchairs. We don't take regular wheelchairs in. We have MRI safe wheelchairs. It looks like a bunch of PVC piping put together, but it works.
So even a metal wheelchair can be a projectile?
A metal wheelchair can also fly in there. These magnets can be very strong.
What about a watch?
Yeah, watches, everything.
Piercings.
We take all of them off. So
Watch your piercing go, woo!
yeah. So we take those things off. Now, if you have like implants in the body, like a steel rod or something,
Out it comes.
those are completely different. It's not going to be like the TV shows where it rips it out of the body or something. That's not going to happen.
So for your Tuesday night entertainment, don't go to a horror movie,
Yeah.
go to an MRI. We're hoping that you're teaching your students how to avoid.
Yes, yeah. Like I said before, patient care is huge, and so we teach this. We have a whole class just for safety. It's called safety.
I think I understand what you were saying in the earlier segment better.
Yeah.
I want to know crazy story in MRA, craziest day in MRA you've had.
Well, it all depends, but an interesting story that I found for me was when I was probably 6 months after graduate, working as an MRI tech. It was a Saturday, so it was just me and the receptionist. No one else is there, and I'm scanning a patient just for a headache. They came in, they hit their head the day before, they got an order, and now I'm scanning for a headache. I start scanning the patient, and I see that their brain is being pushed to the side because the skull is filling up with blood. So I call my radiologist right then on the phone. It's a weekend, they're not working, but emergencies like that, you need to. So I call him. He says, finish, I want these scans. So he tells me specific MRI sequences that he wants me to scan on the patient. And he calls the hospital. Luckily, we were right next door to a hospital. He calls the hospital, they bring an ambulance. So I finish the scan, I have the CD ready, and the ambulance takes the patient with the CD to the hospital to take care of the patient.
So they literally had to go straight into urgent care because of the actual need. So the brain was actually being pushed. You can actually see
the brain's being pushed over because the skull is filling up with blood, and so they have to drain the blood. And so they usually will drill some holes into the skull to do that. But if that wasn't seen, that patient could have died.
But it presented as headaches to them.
Yeah, just
It's
presented as a
literally
headache.
just
Yeah, the patient did hit his head the day before, but obviously it wasn't enough of a hit that the patient went to the hospital. They just called and got an appointment for the next day. And so it just shows that a simple headache that you see on an order can actually be a life-threatening emergency.
Yeah.
And you have to keep your composure and get the job done because we need to take care of those patients.
And looking at the gravity of this, 50 years ago, without that MRI, they would have died.
Yeah, without MRI, I mean, they might have done an X-ray if the patient went to a hospital or something along the lines. It would have been harder to see. MRI shows that really, really well. Soft tissues, brain tissue, and everything like that. So yeah, it was really good. I had really good images for the hospital, and so they had exactly what they needed to take care of the patient.
And like 100 years ago, then that patient would have been in extreme pain, right? They would have
100 years
died
ago.
with extreme pressure on the brain. I can't imagine.
Yeah, if you let it
forward.
go on, it could be life-threatening.
We're gonna go round 2 on Gory Story Day.
Yeah.
All right.
So another instance, I was a student, probably 2 weeks at my clinical site, so I'm very fresh. I'm actually starting to sit behind the console with my tech there telling me what to do. And
You're right on the job, proud.
Yeah. So I haven't seen anything crazy yet as a student. And we had a patient come in. It was like an 8-year-old little girl. She had some leg pain. That was it, leg pain. And so we set her up for the scan for the leg. And it ended up being a tumor within the bones. I called the radiologist over as I'm scanning. He's watching the scan. He's like, okay, I need these sequences. And he basically told us this girl is going to lose her leg, so it doesn't spread throughout the body. And so, that right there as a student being very fresh into the field, that made me realize, wow, this is serious. These patients that, the girl didn't seem like anything was wrong. Yeah, her leg hurts. She said, oh, it hurts right here.
Was the tumor, it was cancerous, right? And then was it taking over? Okay, so it was taking over like the bone.
It wasn't anything on the outside that you could see. It was just eating away the bone.
But like how much of the bone?
I guess it was enough for the doctor to say they were going to lose her leg.
And they did amputate.
I mean, I'm not in that part of it, but I mean, that's what the doctor said. And it just made me realize how real these scans can be. Something as simple as just regular leg pain can turn into something life-changing for a patient. So,
but yet the MRI saved her life because we had
definitely, if we didn't do anything, if they never saw that, it could have spread throughout the whole body and definitely taken her life. Yeah.
And that's where it went from textbook to like, wow.
Yeah. It was,
yeah.
that was a wow moment for sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.